I'm a first-generation citizen of the United States. My mother's family were Viennese before they resettled in Canada after the First World War. She came to New York City for art school around 1940. My father was Norwegian, having completed his obligatory service in the Norwegian Army and his engineering degree in his hometown of Trondheim. He came to the U.S. to do some graduate studies. My parents met at the International House in Manhattan. They eventually became U.S. citizens, married, and settled into life here. I was born in New York City, the third and last child to join the family. We grew up on Long Island. It's a nice tale, and I have lived the privileged life of a white, educated male from a comfortable upper middle class family. I am Jewish, and although I am painfully aware of anti-Semitism in the U.S., I have never felt that it was a handicap to me personally. Indeed, my family's story had a happy ending, but there's some history that has shaped us in ways that may not be obvious. One of the reasons my father came to the US is that Hitler had recently invaded Poland. His father encouraged him to travel for his own safety. Norway was occupied by the Nazis shortly after my father came here. Norway only had some 2,000 Jews at the time, but they suffered almost immediately from bouts of intimidation, mistreatment, theft, and incarceration. Some managed to flee to Sweden. Most of those who remained in Norway lost their lives. My full name is David Henry Mendelsohn. My middle name commemorates my father's oldest brother, Henrik. I never met Henrik because he perished in a gas chamber at Auschwitz concentration camp, as did my grandparents and many other members of my father's family. While this was happening, members of my mother's family were arrested in Austria, and her now Canadian father was extorted to pay the Nazis to free them. He paid at least once to free his brother in Vienna, but did so at a tremendous cost to his soul. My father joined the U.S. Army and fought in World War II, entering France with the first waves of U.S. troops. There's a lot more to that story, and I'm grateful that my father wrote his memoirs, revealing many elements that he had not wanted to talk about during his life. But for today, I will ask you to imagine the life that these people in Norway and Austria endured. Like the proverbial frog in a pot of water on the boil, many could not believe that their lives would descend from annoying propaganda and anti-Semitism to brutal destruction, to unthinkable cruelty, and to widespread death and desperation. And of course, this is not a story about Jews only. A great many intellectuals, gypsies, GLBTQ people, and other scapegoats and dissidents lost their lives or loved ones in this inhuman madness. Upon hearing our family's story, kind friends might say, "I'm sorry that happened to you, but it didn't really happen to me. I was not an eyewitness to these events, even if my father was. I never saw twisted, emaciated bodies in mass graves, although my father did. My life has been good. I have always felt safe in the US. But for many of us, that sense of safety is rapidly changing as the rule of law is collapsing. I've grown up with a history of dictators, how they use scapegoats to turn us against one another. I've seen how bold lies can stand while truth and humanity are crammed into dark places of fabricated hate. I understand the destructive, heartbreaking results. I am seeing the very same behaviors, tactics, lies, and belligerence tearing down the rule of law and the very idea of democracy around the world, and now in the United States. I know this story, and I know how our complacency can feed it. I read many news sources. I speak out on social media. I attend rallies, but probably not often enough. I call our representatives and send postcards to voters, but probably not often enough. I stand in awe of those who find the energy to do so much more than I do to fight this. And sometimes I feel badly that I'm not finding the will to do more. We all have lives and demands on our time and energy, and we each have a limit to how much emotional energy we can invest before driving ourselves mad. The message I hope to convey is that we must not lose sight of what's at stake. It can be overwhelming. If you do not yet believe that ICE and the Customs and Border Patrol are our modern day Gestapo, I beg you to reconsider. They are the same type of lawless thugs, although the Gestapo did not wear masks. Although I may not personally feel the icy hand of pain, loss, hopelessness, and death in our current condition, I weep to see how many do. Most of them productive members of our society who have faced impossible barriers to legitimate citizenship. I am terrified for our nation and our humanity. If we are outraged, we must each find our own way to resist and to wake our sleeping neighbors who do not yet see where this inevitably leads. Thank you.
Courage, my friend, you do not go alone. We will go with you and sing your spirit home. Friends, I want to start this reflection windy path of telling you what I experienced and what I saw to say that it is not polished. It's going to be rambly and disjointed. I'm probably going to cry. We might all probably cry. And that is good and whole and holy. I want you to know that I am okay. You do not need to take care of me. These types of events can take several days to process, and all of the ministerial rules tells us that we must preach from our scars, not our wounds. But this is just too much. It is an open wound for every single person in this room. And I am so thankful that you are here to witness the reality of the emotion that is present in so many people in Minneapolis, though I think people in Minneapolis are screaming more than crying right now, to be fair. And I'm just really glad that you took the time to be with us this morning to hear the story, because the story must be elevated. If we don't share this story, the media is going to keep spinning whatever the media is going to spin. I'm thankful that you said yes to also grieving and tending your wounds and sitting in our dis-ease together. My loves, this is what beloved community is about. I also want to say that I do not need thanks for answering the call to Minneapolis. My decisions took no heroics. It took no courage. My white, privileged, able-bodied, powerful body moving to Minnesota, I wasn't who people were looking for. I was called by my values, my Unitarian Universalist values, to be present, to witness, to learn, and the call was obvious and undeniable in my soul. If you want to somehow express gratitude for me having gone there, you can express gratitude for those with their boots on the ground every single day, for those who created the container for 1,200 stranger clergy to show up and be taught and shown and fed and included in the neighborhood patrols so that I might bring this learning back to you. I I was up so late last night. I got back from Minneapolis to Philadelphia late morning and then drove to my husband's house in Wilkes-Barre to pick up my dog and then drove to Syracuse and got back about 5 o'clock yesterday. And then had time to finally sit with the new death of Alex Preddy and to grieve and mourn that. And that took a lot of time. And so I wrote a sermon that is trash and I'm not going to use it. So I am simply going to share with you um, about my experience, about what I saw, and share with you my joy that I saw. And I'm going to share some pictures with you and know that after worship is over, after our postlude has concluded, we will be open for questions and answers. I am not sure how to how to manage questions. If there are a lot of them, I think we're going to have people put questions in the chat bar. So, Stacy and David and Terry, if you can try to copy paste and manage questions and help me out with those later, that would be great. Um, so, so here's what happened. So the boots on the ground people in Minneapolis, the organizers who are all very queer, let me just tell you, the organization in Minneapolis is queer to the tilt, queer and transgender and beautiful and rainbow and beloved. And the reason is because queer people know how to do family, right? We hetero cis folks, we don't understand why chosen family is so important and matters so much in the world. And so all of these queer, incredible organizers put out a call. They talk with one another and they thought, we need an injection of hope in this place. And I know a lot of you that are on this call are atheists like myself. And so ministers, clergy may not give you much hope, but for many religious people, having a huge group of people come in from out of town to just be with them and witness what they're going through is huge. I in our travels, we encountered so many people who just could not stop expressing their gratitude. When we were flying home, I often fly with my clergy collar on, especially in times of unrest, because being a visible clergy presence in a world, whether people think that I'm Christian or not, I don't care. Being a visible clergy presence matters to people, and people see me. I've been stopped in the grocery store. I've been stopped in the parking lot to offer prayers and offer love to people because people need that in this world. And so Laura and I traveled in our collars, and on the way back, the flight attendant kept stopping to thank us, and with tears in her eyes, was just so thankful that we were just sitting there and like our presence on her flight gave her some modicum of hope. And so these organizers put out a call on Friday. They put out a call on Friday and asked clergy from all over the country to fly to Minnesota on whatever day. Wednesday. We went to Minnesota on Wednesday. 1,200, more than 1,200 people answered this call. They actually had to put a cap on everything because they couldn't safely contain and support and hold a container for more than that many people. And it was just incredible. And all of these churches all over Minneapolis opened their doors. We were meeting, I don't have the name of the church that our main presence was in, but friends, it was like a hotel up in there. I don't know, fanciest church I've ever been in with the marble floors and um it was incredible. And they opened all of their doors and their people were there to welcome us and to there was a table full of winter clothing for our colleagues that came from out of state or out of winter. There they somehow fed all of us. There was a huge table of snacks everywhere. Like the welcome was incredible. In 4 days, these people who are exhausted from daily patrols and fighting ICE constantly, they created a welcoming space for us to exist in, a space that I wasn't expecting, nor did I need, right? I came because my values told me I needed to show up. And so here's what I can say about what I saw. It is not it is not the case that there are tanks rolling over the streets or that there's some kind of like stormtrooper presence of ICE. Um, I, I had kind of thought that maybe it's like when I flew to Alaska, we didn't take the extra excursion to see the bears because I thought when our plane landed, there would just be a bear on the tarmac waiting for us. I thought that when we got to Minnesota, there would be just like stormtroopers everywhere, right? And there weren't. And ICE agents were absolutely everywhere. So they got us together to kind of open the container. When clergy get together, we don't just go in to rough some stuff up, right? We weren't there to cause problems. We were there to be a holy, peaceful presence. So when we do these things, it is very planned, it is very careful, it is very whole, and it's very sacred. So we opened up space together. We made a container for each other. We sang, we prayed. Um, we were given the rundown about what's happening. We heard from a man called Jim Bear, who is a Dakota native of the land, and talked to us about how the river where Minneapolis is sacred Dakota land, and that it's very ironic because what was it? Fort Sumner? There was a fort that was built there, the first military, industrialized military occupation in the United States. Fort Snelling, thanks, Joe. Um, you can see Fort Snelling from this river. It's right there in the river valley. And then off in the distance of a photo that he showed us was the building, the name that I'm having trouble with, the ICE headquarters that exist in Minneapolis. And so it was all very surreal that he called it, we're a land both of Genesis, of creation, and genocide, of killing, and how plainly obvious and incredible that was just to take in and witness. Um, we then on our most of our action was contained to Thursday and Friday. Wednesday night when I got in, I had an incredible conversation with a colleague from Texas. I hope you see the first video that I posted on Instagram about exactly what is happening in Texas because I wasn't following that. I had no idea. I knew that they were housing people there. I had no idea that it's the concentration camp magnitude that it is. And TJ explained to us how they had these huge warehouse buildings that they basically take the roof off of, drop in these cage grids, and then put 10 to 15 people in these individual cages that do not have plumbing. They're not sanitary. They're not fed properly. There's not ventilation. There's not air conditioning. And all these people are living in these inhumane conditions in squalor, and he has seen that with his eyes. He has been in those conditions. They are not allowing clergy any longer to go into those conditions because, of course, they don't want anybody to report back what's going on. But I trust that he has seen that with his eyes, and that is what he has told me. He has seen with his eyes. And so one of the things that happens here, and I'm going to kind of bounce around a little bit, is when ICE detains somebody in Minneapolis, they hold them sometime for 3 hours or less and then fly them to a concentration camp in Texas. It does not matter who it is, right? Sometimes ICE will surround a person or a vehicle and ask for papers and then let them go. Sometimes ICE will just snatch people. Sometimes ICE will take somebody who can produce papers and then ship them to Texas anyway. They recently shipped a father and a 5-year-old. They shipped a 5-year-old to a concentration camp in Texas. And if you are listening to the news and if you are hearing that ICE is here to take the criminals and the rapists and the murderers out of our country, that is simply not what is happening in this country, right? And I also want to add that the chat bar, I don't know what's happening in the chat bar. It's coming up for me here and there. This is not a place to argue about what happened to Renee Good or Alex Preddy. This is not a place to question what is happening. If there is anybody that is questioning that or arguing, Stacy has my permission to boot them right out of the meeting because we are just not going to hold space for that here at May Memorial. We know what the truth is, and we are here to spread the truth. So there's these concentration camps in Texas where people are being booted to from Minneapolis. And then if they find out they have no legal grounds to hold them, they just let them go. In Texas, where they have nobody and nothing with just whatever was in their pockets or whatever they didn't take from them, the clothing on their back. That is what is happening. And so coming back to Minneapolis, there are ICE agent cars everywhere. I think the ICE presence is about 3,000. I think they said something around 3,000 agents in Minneapolis. And they patrol neighborhoods. So they focus on neighborhoods, of course, where brown and black bodies continue to be terrorized. I know that you're seeing that ICE is murdering white folks, and I know that we all have feelings about when white folks are murdered. That's all great. We should have feelings about white folks being murdered, and this is a way bigger problem, and black and brown folks have been murdered since the inception of this country. So I just want to keep us grounded in that. And queer bodies, right? Disabled bodies, those have all been murdered since the inception of this country. And so, and so I, so the heroic actions of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, absolutely 1,000,000%. They are amazing humans. I want us to talk about that. And I am glad that those murders made people angry and made people feel something. So we helped to patrol the streets, and patrolling the streets of these neighborhoods, of these black and brown neighborhoods, of which I'm going to show you some pictures in a minute. I didn't take many pictures because it was very cold there. If you think that it is cold, is not cold. It is not cold here. I thought I was prepared. I have been to the northernmost city on the planet. It was not that cold there. It was very cold there. So you would take your fingers out of your mittens for 10 seconds to snap a picture and then be frozen and have to dive back into the warmth. So I did take some pictures, but we patrol the streets. So that means that we walked around looking for ICE vehicles, and ICE vehicles are characterized by tinted windows, something that holds a lot of people. So SUVs or vans or some type like that. They can be different at times. Sometimes they're pickup truck with those big cabs. Usually there are men inside. You can see through the front window, and they have some kind of face covering and mask while they're driving, even though they're inside. And they usually have some wraparound sunglasses on, depending on what's going on. And but ICE is getting sneaky in Minnesota, so they're starting to put bumper stickers on the back of their cars, things that say coexist and vegan, to try to outsmart the people that are watching for them. So there are people patrolling on foot, there are people patrolling in their cars. ICE isn't patrolling on foot. ICE is always patrolling in a vehicle, because they have an easier getaway, right? So all of these people are looking for ICE, and they are organized. Let me tell you, there are patrols at all times of the daytime and into the nighttime. There are patrols around the schools before the kids even get there to make sure there's no ICE hanging out in vehicles. There are patrols everywhere. And something that I think that Syracuse needs to improve upon in our ICE recognition or our ICE strategy is that in Minnesota, like you saw if you watched the videos of the murders of Renee and Alex, I don't recommend. And if you do watch the video, you can see with your own eyes exactly what happened and not hear from the media what happened, what they say happened. But when an ICE agent is spotted, they are loud. There are whistles. We're going to have some whistles at May Memorial. We're going to do some training on non-cooperative action and nonviolent resistance. But when you see an ICE agent, you get as close to them as you can, which isn't that close, within 10, 15, feet or so, and you blow your whistle and you follow them around. If they are in their car, you honk and honk and honk and you just follow them. You try to block them from going to the neighborhoods. And I want to be clear, they are not obstructing justice, right? Because ICE agents aren't doing any type of justice. They are simply kidnapping people. They're literally snatching people off of the streets. And these abductions happen in minutes, friends. 2 minutes. It takes 2 minutes for an ICE agent to get out of their car, snatch a body off the street, throw them in the car, and drive away. And and they don't care who the body is. Is it black or brown? Great. It checks the box. Let's take that one. When Laura and I were out patrolling, one day there was a woman outside of their church kind of sweeping or shoveling snow, and we're walking away. We had walked past her and said hello, and she thanked us. So many people thanked us for being on the sidewalk and being on the streets because there's nobody else out there, right? Like people stay in their homes. They have groceries delivered. If their children are brave enough to go to school, their children are picked up by white people who drive them to the door of the school, walk them into the school, and then walk back to their car. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the organizing in a minute. So we walk past this woman. We're walking into further into the community down the block, and past us drives a big white pickup truck that has a big cab with dark windows and out-of-state plates. And I had turned to look at it, and sure enough, it pulled over to the side of the road in the view of this woman who was sweeping. The woman was brown-skinned. And we walked back and stood across the street from this truck and just watched them. We stared at them. And I don't know if they were ICE. I don't know what was going on. But they did drive away after a little while of us just staring straight at them. They looked at us a couple times. They stared at us a couple times, but mostly ignored us. But eventually they drove away. And so we were thankful for that. The clergy group that we were out with, one of my friends, James Galazinski up in the Canton Church, witnessed an attempted abduction this time. There were many, many, many clergy witnesses that were blowing whistles, and the ICE agent stopped and asked for the woman's papers. The woman had gotten groceries and was in her car with her babies. She was a brown woman in her car with her babies. And these stormtroopers surrounded her vehicle and demanded her papers. In America, we are demanding papers of brown and black people. That's what's happening. Attempted abduction of a brown person outside of a church that we were in. And it happened right outside the church. There were hundreds of clergy inside the church, and there were observers that were in their car blowing their whistles and honking their horns, legally observing. Friends, not obstructing justice. If your family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, whatever, tell you that people are obstructing justice, they are not. They're stopping people from kidnapping other humans. That is what's happening. They are legal observers. It's the same as if you were to walk into a courtroom, you would be able to go and legally observe anything in a courtroom. And so their legal observing happens to also come with loud noises and horns and whistles because they make the noise to, one, let the whole neighborhood know that ICE is there, and two, alert any other patrollers that they need to come to the scene, because the more witnesses there are, the less likely an abduction is to take place. So the ICE agents surrounded the vehicle of these observers, smashed in their driver's side window, even though her hands were up and she said, "I'm legally observing." You don't have to roll down your window. You don't have to do anything for these agents. But they smashed in her window, tried to pull her out of the car, and did not succeed. Finally, they gave up. She had been assaulted and her face was bloody and she had a windshield in her eyes. And they were right in front of a church where there were tons of clergy and people that had medic experience. So we were able to help them out. The abduction did not take place. And we patrolled the next day. That was the huge march in Minneapolis. And wait, I also want to say Friday morning, there was a planned action, which I'm sure that many of you have heard of over the news. Thankfully, got some coverage. So there were many, many clergy who went to the Minneapolis airport to do some nonviolent resistance. The reason they were at the airport is because Delta is one of the most major employers of Minnesota, and have been compliant with ICE, and they have been the ones chartering flights, deportation flights from Minneapolis to Dallas. And so the direct action was calling for the halt of Delta's partnership with ICE. And I want to say too that there are ICE agents in the airport, and the ICE agents are abducting people who are trying to do their jobs, literally snatching people off of the tarmacs, out of the restaurants, because they have black and brown skin. Not because I know who they are. Nobody's asking anybody's names here. So I just can't stress enough that some a person that I love, who I've been in conversation with recently, was telling me how, how the government is trying to take criminals off the streets, and that they don't want criminals on the streets. Fine. They also don't want criminals living in deplorable, inhumane conditions, because that's not cool either. But the thing is that these ICE kidnappings are not targeted. They don't they don't say, "Excuse me, sir, can I see your ID? What's your name?" There's none of that. They just grab a person and go. They literally grab a human off the street and take them away. That is what is happening. So, so I wanted to say all of that because I'm not a paid liberal protester. I did, in fact, pay to go there. I paid money to be a part of this because I needed to witness what was going on. I wanted to be able to come back to Syracuse, New York, and say, this is what's going on. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to have some meetings with CNY Solidarity and with Certain to learn from the folks in Minneapolis who learn from the organizers in Chicago and have so many strategies and so many great toolkits about how we handle the situation, because it's not if, right? It's when. And we know that ICE is already abducting people in Syracuse. And their presence is not nearly what it is in Minneapolis, but they are already taking these people off the ground. So, so it is bad there. That is my firsthand testimony of what it is like in Minneapolis. Later on, we'll be able to have some Q&A. I am watching the time. I do see what time it is. The last thing, I'm going to go on for a little bit longer. Just bear with me. If you're done here, great. Head out. That's okay. I won't take it personally. I'm just going to go on for a little bit longer. So, especially because we're all snugly warm in our homes, and I'm watching the snow out the window. It's beautiful. So I'm going to turn to the joy. And here's what I want to share about the joy. I, and this is why I'm going to cry, right? Because I can't, there are not words to express to you how incredible the mutual aid, the mutual support, the mutual networks are in Minneapolis. Like they just, they're just so incredible. Um, we, for one, we were at the in a targeted neighborhood, and most of the congregation does not speak English. Only very few of them do. The priest was there. They welcomed us. They who spoke some English, but mostly Spanish. And her welcome was just wide and extraordinary. And they told me about how they're packing food boxes, and they have once a month they have free acupuncture and Reiki for community members who need the healing, and they sneak them into the church, right? And they have medics on site. They and the medics, the med students that are coming in to do the med work aren't just there to do the medical work. They're also there to be security at the doors. They're also there to patrol the neighborhoods. They're also there to keep people safe. It is just incredible. And while 200 clergy are sitting in this little sanctuary, our priest says, "Oh, by the way, my folks just decided they want to feed you lunch, so they're gonna make some soup for you." For 200 people, they're just gonna make some soup for us. And so we come out of the sanctuary. That was the place where the abduction took place, and they harmed the observers, and and they and they made soup for us. These people that are literally under siege, they made soup for us. And you just can't say thank you enough. You cannot. I'm going to have cards at May Memorial, and the congregation is going to sign a card. Thanks for feeding our minister and taking care of her while she's in your. Because my mind is blown from the welcome that I saw at this place. They, eh, because they're the affected ones. They are the brown and black folks that are being targeted by the ICE agents, and they made lunch for me. Like, and the mutual aid, we were told a story by one of our Jewish colleagues that that morning she was late to come and talk to us because she was taking breast milk to a woman that was caring for a baby, and the baby's mother was snatched out of the NICU. They don't know where she is. They take them away and then they're gone. They're disappeared. Once they get to the concentration camps in Texas, they have the right to talk to their lawyer for 15 minutes at a time with a half an hour window in between. That's not enough time to complete asylum paperwork. It's just not. These people have the most extensive mutual aid support networks. They are getting food to people. They have telemedicines appointments for people that absolutely cannot leave their house. And then they have people that pick up the prescriptions and drive them to their house. They are helping with childcare. They are helping educate children who can't leave the house. They are helping with transportation when folks absolutely have to leave the house in their secret cars in the back under blankets. They are moving people where they need to be moved. They we were patrolling, there were several times where we patrolled neighborhoods, just clergy singing on the sidewalks, and people were opening their window shades and waving to us. And I don't know what's happening to our screen. I don't know who's moving that around, but people were calling out their door, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. They were thanking us for walking on the street, for just being there to keep them safe. And while we were walking on the street, there were cars that were patrolling. There were um, good patrollers that were outside patrolling who would pull over and ask if we needed snacks or hand warmers. And 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 when you ask them if this is organized, they say no. They say, well, kind of. They have to so many Signal chats. If you don't have Signal on your phone, I invite you to please download it on your phone. It is an encrypted chat messaging service where you can have chats with your friends with networks. And so when somebody's out patrolling and they see an ICE unit or ICE people, they call into the dispatcher. There's a dispatcher on 24/7 on Signal, and they have a log of license plates. They check the license plate to see if they can identify it as an ICE vehicle, because ICE is also switching license plates to different cars. So they'll do a patrol and then they'll go and they'll change the license plates out onto different cars. Um, so they'll get a license plate check, and if they get a confirmation, then a whole signal goes out to everybody about exactly where ICE is located, and people start following them. The community comes out. People come out of their homes to blow their whistles and tell their neighbors that ICE is here. Do not come out. Do not risk your life. And and it is just incredible. And so I know I want to say that I respect Certain, absolutely respect Certain. I'm so glad for the work that Certain is doing and for the work that CNY Solidarity is doing. I'm hoping I can have a conversation with them. And what I've learned in Minneapolis is that we need to be better about alerting the community to ICE. So what that means is we don't post on our social media, ICE is in Syracuse, right? We don't do that. We don't post if we think ICE is there. I've been in contact with a friend in Syracuse. We had this conversation, and she said, well, I posted this and I'm not sure it was right. And so we had a conversation where she had seen some tinted vehicles and made an assumption that they were ICE. We also can't do that, right? Because that just builds fear. We're not fear mongering in this community. we need to be more direct with our actions. So the acronym that is used is salute. So S is for sightings. Where have you seen them? Exactly where have you seen them? Um, A is for something that I'm going to tell you in my notes because my brain is in so many places. Um, okay, size. Sorry. S is for size. How many officers are there? How many people exactly? A is for activity. What are they doing? Has anybody been detained? Are they abducting anybody? Are they moving? What's happening? L is for location. Where did you see them exactly? And in what direction are they heading? Where are they going? U is for units. What type of officers are there? What words or markings or visible uniforms make them ice in your mind? T is for time. When exactly did you see them? And E is for equipment. What are they wearing? What are they holding? What do they have? In Minneapolis, many ICE agents they're just walking around with their guns in their hands. Like, they just have their guns drawn. Because for funsies, I heard somebody say, I can't verify that. I won't say it because I can't verify it. I'm not going to speak ill of them. Um, so if you can verify that there's ice present, thanks, Pilar, for posting that. If you can absolutely verify that that is what you're seeing, post it on your social media and then Go go to where they are and honk your horn. Follow them with your car. Get your whistle, blow your whistle, make it known, be loud. They operate in secret, friends. They are slinking around, and that is how they're able to abduct people. So be loud about what's happening. Tell the neighborhood what's going on. Make sure everybody knows that there's ICE presence. If somebody's mad at you for honking your horn, who cares? Who cares? Because if you honking your horn or blowing your whistle is going to keep somebody else safe, great. Let's do that. Let's do that together. So I'm going to screen share for a minute and share with you a couple of photos here. And again, I didn't take too many. I promise I'm almost done. So we patrolled mostly in the Lake Street district. Oh, I was going to tell you, we went to the big march in Minneapolis, Laura and I did on Friday afternoon after the airport action where 100 clergy were arrested. We were asked not to go there because let me stop share. I did not go to the airport action because the organizers, the people that we listen to, we listen when there are people organizing, we listen to them, right? The organizers, we were going to risk arrest, but the organizers came back to say in the morning there is a higher likelihood of federal presence at this planned action. So we don't want out of town folks to risk arrest or even be there. Don't come. If you are from out of Minnesota, do not come to the airport. And some of my clergy friends still went, and that is fine. That's their choice. I chose to listen to the organizers. I did not go to the airport. I felt that I did not need to go to the airport. There were other things that I went to where I was able to learn more about the organizing, what was actually happening on Friday morning. So then on Friday afternoon was the huge march in Minneapolis. I don't know, thousands and thousands of people showed up for this. And it was one of those huge city protests. And Laura and I were in the thick of it. And we looked at each other. We're like, who's patrolling the neighborhoods? Right? And we were certain that somebody was patrolling the neighborhoods, but we thought our bodies were better used patrolling the neighborhoods. So we left the march and got an Uber to the Lake Street District and patrolled the Lake Street District for the next couple of hours. And while we were on foot, we saw a couple other patrollers on foot. There were other patrollers in cars that stopped and made sure that we were okay. So we knew that somebody was watching, but we just felt like our bodies were better used. There were plenty of bodies in the Target Center and in the really cold streets of Minneapolis. So we just went and did that thing. So back to the pictures. So the Lake Street District is just the most incredible, beautiful, vibrant, lovely neighborhood that you've ever seen, and it is empty. People are, businesses are closed. People aren't walking around town because it literally is not safe for them. There are murals everywhere. This was one of the murals. These are more of the murals. Almost the side of almost every single building was painted in incredible murals. They were just extraordinary. There were so many, I didn't have the chance to get a shot of every single one of them. This was just an interesting, stark business. You can see the open sign in the upper right-hand corner that isn't lit up because it is indeed closed. But this place of joy and candy and fun and children's joy is indeed closed. These tags, this was probably the most profound part of my trip. For those of you who may be visually unable to see the tag, what I'm showing is a brick building that has what I'm calling a graffiti stamp. It says a neighbor was taken here, and then there's a graffiti stamp of a butterfly, and then the bottom line says abolish ICE. And it was so reminiscent of what we've read about in 1940s Germany with the swastikas everywhere, right? While these were painted by the resistance, it is a sign of the Nazis, right? And they were in so many different places. So anywhere a person was taken in that neighborhood, there was a stamp. Um, this one on the left was put on a trash can because that was the place that they could put it. And we didn't take a picture of all of them. We saw too many. This is Renee Good's memorial. We took just a couple photos of that. There were no ICE agents present there when we were there. And then how they host dance parties quarterly, where they get people into the building and then have a safe place for them to experience joy and also be safe. And the joy and welcome in this place is just incredible. This was a little bit of the protest. Friends, I am pretty fun size, so this was as tall as I could get my phone, and it's not even half of it. I'm sure you've seen pictures on the news. This is Laura and I. My glasses were quite literally frozen over. And in the Lake Street district, the theater said, "Thank you, beloved community." And how appropriate that was for us to see. So that is all I'm going to say for now. I apologize for going on for so long. Again, I will happily answer questions after our postlude has finished. And I see the chat bar is alive and well. And I just want to finish. I did write an actual closing. So, out of everything, this is what I need you to hear. So pay attention. This is happening right now, every day, every minute. It is happening in Minneapolis. It is happening in Maine and in Dallas. And if we don't do anything about it, it's going to come here as well. It will still come here, whether we do something about it or not. But the question is, how organized are we going to be able to be before it comes here and it is out of control? I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, what can I do? The people I met in Minneapolis are not superheroes, my love. They are just people. They are people that decided that their values, like ours, demand action. So they figured out how to organize with each other. They figured out how to spot ICE vehicles. They figured out how to alert the entire neighborhood of the presence of ICE. They are feeding their neighbors and keeping them safe every single minute of every single day. They did what needed to be done because there is no other choice. There is no other choice. The first principle of our Unitarian Universalist faith reminds us that every single person has dignity and deserves respect. Every one of them, no matter what papers they have, no matter their skin color or their accent, the size of their body, the ability of their body. Our values as Unitarian Universalists call us to justice, equity, and compassion. They demand that we are accountable for the ways in which we treat each other and show up for one another, especially those who are marginalized. And right now, in this moment, our government is breaking families apart, moment by moment. They are holding humans in cages. They are murdering people simply for exercising their rights to be legal observers of the war crimes that are being committed on a daily basis. They are murdering people because they have black and brown skin, because they speak with an accent. So, friends, we have a choice. We can pretend this is not happening. We can look away because because I am comfortable, warm, safe, white, able-bodied person in my home. I don't see it happening, right? So if I don't see it happening, it's not happening. If it's not happening in Syracuse, we can look away more easily. It's like when you don't go to family Thanksgiving because you know it's going to be happening there. You can pretend it's not happening all by yourself in your house, right? But what you need to do is you need to act in the way that your values demand of you. There are so many Christians in this world who think that atheists don't have values or are lawless or whatever it is. We have deep, deep, intense values of love and justice and compassion in this world, and we must act on it. And friends, I'm not going to lie and say it's not going to be hard. This is going to be hard, and it's going to be a long time. And ICE is snatching legal observers off the streets who aren't doing any crimes. That is exactly what the Nazis do. And as David said, they didn't wear masks, right? They were not afraid. Friends, we must learn from our Jewish beloveds who were taken. Their bones, their bones hold resilience for us, epigenetic resilience. If trauma is epigenetic, resilience is also epigenetic, and we have learned that, and we must carry that forward. We can learn and organize and show up. We can make noise, and we must refuse to cooperate with injustice. If somebody pulls you over and you are a white, able-bodied person, you need to resist. You do not need to give them information because you have been taught as a white person that you're going to give them information because you just comply with the police. You do not have to comply. You do not have to. And we don't say the words, am I under arrest? You say, am I free to go? Those are the only words. If somebody pulls you over, ask for your ID, not because you were speeding or whatever. If you're on the street or you're resisting something or resisting an action, you say, am I free to go? And then you leave. You leave and get far enough away where you can continue to observe and videotape. We need to protect our neighbors in danger. I'm asking you to get organized. Be intentional. Be intentional about getting to know your neighbors. Start a mutual aid network. I don't care if you don't know your neighbors. I don't care if you think it's weird. I know some of you think it's weird. I want you to write a letter and you're going to take it to all the houses in your neighborhood in your 1 block radius, whatever. And you're going to say, hey, I'm Joe. I think mutual aid is really important. If you're concerned about what's happening in the world, I hope you'll send me a text and I can add you to the network that we're starting in this neighborhood to keep everybody safe. That is real. You might think it's weird. You're not going to think it's weird when we need it and you don't have it. So I want you to participate in CNY Solidarity. I want you to participate and know what's happening with Certain, get on their newsletters, know, or whatever's happening in your community. Make sure that you know wherever you are in this country, what is happening and how you are connected to the resistance, because we all must be a part of it. Because beloved community is a daily practice that we must choose every single time we wake up. My friends, the practice starts now. Will you answer the call?